Hey everyone, welcome to DeFi Digs, where we dig deep into decentralized finance projects from around the crypto world. Today we're going to be talking about CeFi versus DeFi. What are the differences and what are the pros and cons of each? As always, I am not a financial advisor. None of this is financial advice. This video is for educational purposes only. Please do your own research. Let's dig into it. So CeFi versus DeFi, centralized finance versus decentralized finance. When we look at the main differences here, I've kind of broken them out into a number of different characteristics, but the main one is in the name. The CeFi platforms like BlockFi, Celsius, Nexo, there are others. These are just some of the bigger ones that I've used. These are companies. They have an executive team. They are trying to make profit. They have employees. They make the decisions on what changes in the platform. Whereas in DeFi, they're just protocols that we're interacting with. Nobody operates them, and a lot of the decisions and changes that occur are actually voted on by the token holders themselves. So very different models. You can think of CeFi as much more bank-like, essentially just crypto banks. The main difference between them and banks is where you deposit your money into banks and they lend that out. They take 99% of the interest they earn, and with the CeFi platforms, they take a much smaller cut, which is why they're able to pay higher rates. So with the fundamental differences of centralization comes other characteristics such as custody, customer support. So with custody, the CeFi platforms actually custody your assets that you deposit in. They have control over them. They're depositing them into DeFi protocols, earning a yield, paying that back to you, and then taking a small cut. That comes with some potential additional risks because they have custody of your assets. They could potentially go bankrupt. They could freeze your account for some reason if they really wanted to. So those are things that wouldn't necessarily happen in DeFi, since you control your assets, where you deposit them. You're generally the only one that has access into the wallets that your funds will sit on in DeFi. So those risks don't exist. I would say that they're probably pretty small at this point. These companies are pretty well established, definitely very legit, but something to keep in mind nonetheless. Because these are companies as well, they do provide customer support as you are a customer of them. The DeFi protocols, since there are no companies that run those, there's no customer support. So if you run into issues with the protocol, you're going to have to hop on Discord or Telegram or Twitter and ask the community. Whereas on something like Celsius, if you do run into issues, they have a customer support team that can reach out and help you. So another reason why it's sort of nice to start with CeFi, particularly for kind of non-crypto native people. Another key difference between the two are the tokens that are offered on the platforms. In CeFi, they have a limited number that they offer a yield on. It is pretty solid, and they have probably all the ones that you would want early on. But if you have some sort of obscure altcoin or something like that, you will likely not be able to deposit those. Whereas in DeFi, if you look hard enough, you can find a way to earn on pretty much any asset. So also, because these platforms are managing this for you and they take a cut, your yield isn't going to be as high as you would find in DeFi. So if we take a quick look at some of the rates here, this is Celsius, just on stable coins, which are pegged at the US dollar, so not actually a volatile crypto asset. You can use those instead of like your bank account as a savings. But just looking at USDC, 8.88% on Celsius. Obviously that's orders of magnitude more than you would get at a bank. On BlockFi, if we look at the same asset, USDC, it's 8% up to $40,000, and then it drops down to 5. So those are obviously great rates. But if we look elsewhere in the DeFi world, we can see rates of 13.5 to 16.5%. This is on Orion, which uses Anchor protocol. If we go to Convex, then we can see various stable coins here around 15 to 20%. And then if we go to Saper, which is on Solana, we can even see them creep up upper 20s and 30%. So obviously much higher on DeFi, but you have to interact with those protocols yourself, whereas Celsius offers you the convenience of doing that for you. The last point I want to talk about is KYC. So KYC stands for Know Your Customer. It's the process you go through to identify yourself. You might have to submit a driver's license or thing like that. You probably have gone through it on whatever exchange you use. And this is so that the government can identify you and make sure that you're not laundering money, make sure you're not avoiding taxes, things like that. Because these are centralized companies, they have to be more compliant than just a protocol. So they require KYC, whereas DeFi protocols do not. So something worth mentioning. It's kind of a pain in the ass to go through KYC repeatedly. Not a big deal, not something that you're going to be able to completely avoid in crypto altogether. So take that for what you will, but worth mentioning nonetheless. That about wraps us up on CeFi versus DeFi. There are other aspects of these CeFi platforms that I haven't gone into, like borrowing. You can all generally borrow against your crypto in them. I might do a breakdown video later detailing the differences between these and some of the other competitors, things like various fees, the coins that are offered, the yield, things like that. But just wanted to do a high-level comparison between the difference between DeFi and CeFi. So if you guys found the video helpful, consider giving it a like or subscribing. If you have any questions or there's any content you want to see, feel free to comment or hit me up on Twitter. That's it. Thanks, guys.